One of the biggest challenges new managers face is dealing with difficult people. Almost every new manager will complain, I've just got this one person or two or three people that if I could just change them in my team and replace them with people who are on board, everything would be perfect. In this video, I'm going to try and share everything I've learned over the last 30 years working with people as a psychologist, as a therapist, as a coach, and as a mediator into a 15-minute video. The core premise of leadership is that you can add more value through your leadership than if you weren't there. And in order to do this, we have to be able to understand people so that you can make the most of the people in your team. So ultimately, we want to achieve something greater than the sum of their parts. To do this, we've really got to understand what drives people, why they join, and how you can influence those factors to make people more engaged and more productive. So without understanding people, you'll tend to write people off as being difficult. You'll tend to find there's a lot of resistance to any change that you try and make. Find that your people are disengaged or apathetic or lazy. And if you can really understand people and you can use these principles, you'll have a more engaged and enthusiastic team. You'll have a more adaptable group who are growing and developing more capacity. And you'll have a team that's more collaborative and happy to work together. So the biggest mistakes I see are really not understanding people, telling people not to be selfish, saying just do your job, or being too authoritarian or being too understanding and not being focused on performance. We gather together in a team because we want to achieve something. There's a purpose there, and we're not here for therapy. We're not here as a headmaster telling people what to do. We're just gathering people together, bringing out the best of them and making sure that we get the most performance because we all want to achieve something in the end. We need to understand that people are like phones. And by this, I mean that phones have hardware. And so the camera is set for certain specifications to how good pictures it's going to take. The processor is set of how much it can cope with. And there's all these hardware limitations. Then we can download apps to enable the phone to do certain things. And there's an operating system that mediates between those. In the same way, our hardware is genetics. Genetically, there's a limit to our temperament, to our size, to our intelligence. If you're 5'1", you're never going to be a basketball player. If you're got an IQ of 80, you're never going to be able to be a rocket scientist. So people have limitations, but just as we can download apps, you can send people on training courses and they can develop certain skills. But what mediates between those skills and those genetic temperament and tendencies is the operating system. And just as every now and then Apple and Android have to send out updates because they find a bug in the operating system, we have bugs in our operating system. And almost every problem or conflict that we face is because of a bug in the operating system. The way around it is by updating the operating system. The operating system is the set of working assumptions and beliefs that we operate on. Most of what we do is on autopilot. This is why it's so powerful, because most of the time we're just running through routines. People are often opposed to formulas. I always find it funny because everyone's working to a formula. You're just not aware of it. There's a formula in your operating system, and it's being more conscious of the formulas that you're working to. Algorithms in social media and algorithms in computers are just the same as people work on. We have rules of thumbs. These are assumptions and beliefs that we operate on. A strategy is based on an assumption. And then the tactics that we use are about the operating beliefs. And these lead us to a certain expectation. When the result doesn't match the expectation, it shows us that there's a problem with the assumptions and the beliefs. Upgrading our operating system is how we remove some of those problems. People have 3 core drives, and this determines how they feel and how they function. All of us want to belong to a tribe. We want to then gain status within that tribe, and we want to feel that what we're doing in a tribe has some meaning. When these are threatened, we feel under stress. And so if everyone's going out for lunch and they leave one person, then that person's going to feel that they don't belong. If someone gets a better office or a better parking space, they're going to have lower status than that person. And so it's the source of a lot of conflict within teams. If they feel that what they're doing doesn't have any meaning and if it feels pointless, it's not making a difference to anyone, they're going to feel less engaged because there isn't that meaning for them. How much stress we have depends on which version of us shows up. So when we interview someone and we look at someone at their best, we see them in their human side where they're working with their brain, they're working on their rationality, they're working logically. When we threaten how they belong to the pack, we see the chimp side. And so they immediately regress. They have less access to their intelligence. They're more emotionally immature. And when we really threaten someone's survival, that's when we see the lizard brain. And so they function in a completely different way. One of my favorite quotes comes from Archilek, and he said, "People don't rise to your level of expectation. They fall to the level of their training." Often people will hire someone and they'll look great in the interview. 2 months later, they're a complete disappointment. And it's because we expected them to rise to their highest level and they fell to the level that we tolerate. And so people in your team will naturally fall to the most comfortable level. We have to not overstress people, but demand a certain level of performance. All of us are a mix of genetics, our cultural experiences, our individual experiences, our outlook, our personality, and our values. All of these factors influence who we are. I often find it a useful rule of thumb in understanding people to think, if I had their genetics, if I had their cultural experience, if I had their upbringing, then where they stood at a specific time and those experiences, that perspective, I would think and feel exactly as they do. The greatest way to be able to understand someone is to understand the journey that they've been through, what makes them believe as they do. And so this is where curiosity is a great tool. There's a number of spectrums: how much sleep we had, how well we are, what nutrition we're eating, how well we're breathing, how much in flow that we feel, how much we feel that we belong, whether we feel that we're being productive, whether we feel we have freedom, or whether we feel we're controlled, whether we feel part of something or whether we feel on our own. All of these factors are going to determine how someone operates. We get a range of someone at their best to someone at their worst. And the more that we can make them at their best, the more we can gain from them. When we bring someone in and we make them feel that they don't belong, we make them feel that they're low status, we make them feel that what they're doing is futile, we limit their creativity, and we don't understand them, don't feel that they're safe or seen or supported, you're going to get the worst of them. And this is why in relationships, a couple can get together and they'll be so in love. 5 years later, they're like this completely different person. It is a different person because the environment activated the worst of them. So there's a range of how people will function. And the more contented, the more happy, the more self-actualized they feel, the more you're going to get of them. The more creative they're going to be, the more innovative they're going to be, the more open they're going to be to change. When someone feels threatened, when they feel frustrated, when they feel unhappy, when they feel that they don't belong, you're going to get a response that is very much more resistant. Aside from understanding people, we also need to understand why people join. People join because it's in their interest. As someone whose specialist subject was happiness, happiness doesn't come from what you get. Happiness comes from what you give. And people have a need to contribute. People have this generosity that they want to make a difference. They want to make a better world. There's a quote from Blair Warren. I love this quote because it just sums up why people choose their leaders, why they vote for the politicians, and why they endorse a leader. He says that people will do anything for those who encourage their dreams, justify their failures, allay their fears, confirm their suspicions, and help them throw rocks at their enemies. So based on that, there's 4 drives. We want to join together to fight our enemies. We want to have our worldview reinforced and for people to tell us, yeah, you're right. We want people who support our goals, and we want people who absolve us from shame or blame. And there's a core need that we all need to contribute. We want to leave a legacy. And part of the drive of family is to perpetuate our genetics. And romantically, most of us are driven to seek out someone to share our life with. Because aside from the feeling that we get in a state of meditation, everything we want comes from other people, whether it's stuff or whether it's a feeling like attention, respect, validation, to be cared for, to be loved, all of this stuff, and even material things, even if our goal is money or security or whatever it is, it's comes through our relationships. It comes through society. And as an individual, there's little we can do, but we can gain great power by joining together. And this is why people join. They join with people that they identify with. And so the key as a leader is to create something, to create a team and a purpose and a meaning that people will willingly give up their self-interest, because what they're giving up is their self-interest as an individual in order to achieve something more. Is because they identify that it's them doing it. But there's 4 fears that people have. And the biggest fear is the lack of trust. If I join together, will I lose out? Will I be betrayed? Will you turn on me? Will you be angry with me? Will you ridicule me? Or will you reject me? So in order to make the most of people, we have to give people an environment, a culture, and a context that brings out the most in them. We have to reduce the friction, the fears, and we have to give them something that they really value, so that their efforts are driven by their self-interest and not in opposition to their self-interest.